Good evening, everyone. If you don't have a seat, there is another conference room with a screen up in there if you want to watch them in there. But welcome, everyone. If we could all stand and say the pledge, please.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kim, are you all set with roll call?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, approval of the agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the agenda for the April 4th, 2022 regular Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Shelley first. Jeff second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Our next item on the agenda is the Board of Education Spotlight, so I'll hand this over to Superintendent Thompson to lead us in this segment of the agenda.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the agenda here, I'm sorry. And please excuse my voice because I've been getting over a sickness and maybe it's a spring cold or spring fever, something like that. So we have several students that we're going to be recognizing this evening. And the first one is Anna Johnson. She's a C.W. Baker High School senior who competed in the Skills USA regional competition earlier this year and she has won first place in the medical math competition. And she'll be competing in the New York State competition in April. So congratulations to Anna. And like I said, we have quite a few here, and if we could just maybe hold all the applause till the end, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you. Winter. Yeah, she can come on out. Yeah. But we want to have them do a whole group picture here together at the end. Winter athletes, our girls bowling. Our girls bowling team placed 4th overall in Division I in the state tournament at Strike and Spare Lanes on Sunday, March 13th. And that's Amelia Ponto, Jenna Speech, Julia Speech, Mandy Haas, Sam Haas, Lizzie Hildreth, Lauren Gulich, and the coach is Coach Gary Peterson. Next we have boys indoor track. Members of our boys indoor track team took part in the state meet on Saturday, March 5th at Ocean Breeze Athletic Complex in Staten Island. 40 by 400 meter relay team finished 5th overall in the state championship. And that team includes Logan Hayes, Sam Mellinger, Jack McAllister, and Owen Weaver, and Solomon Holden Betts. He finished 6th overall in the 1600 meters. Sam Mellinger competed in the 55 meters. Coach is Bill Spitzer. For boys swimming, Mikey White swam in the state meet at Ithaca College on Friday, March 4th, and his coach is Chris London. Wrestling, Aiden Cowley wrestled in the state tournament on February 26th in Albany, and he was coached by Tony Birkinshaw. So we have a lot of great talent here, and wish them all the very, very best. So congratulations, everyone.
do the girls bowling first. Congratulations, ladies.
Yeah, girls.
Everyone hold up their certificate. Can you come a little bit closer? So you don't stand on them. Perfect. Let me go right here, Jason. All right, everyone smile. Congratulations, thank you. Congratulations. April 27th to the 29th, Anna competes. Let's all give her some love on that. All right, we'll do the captain. Everyone right here. Perfect, thanks guys. Congratulations. Oh, yeah, we want to put it on a little bit. Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next part of the agenda, the correspondence board activities and committee reports. On Wednesday, March 23rd, there was a technology committee meeting. Does anyone have anything to report out on that?
I hear it went very well. I think we were both on business, so apologies.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you know anything, or I don't know what the agenda was, do you have anything to speak to? If not, it's okay. We just had some board members who, it was conflicted with work schedules.
They went over the additional survey report, because the last time they were waiting on feedback from the high school for their student survey, so they went through that.
Thank you. And then on Tuesday, March 29th, we had a Board of Education Superintendent building visits. During the daytime, the students were present at Baker, Derby, and Eldon. Do any of my board colleagues have anything they'd like to share out on those visits?
I had an opportunity to attend all 3 building visits, and it was a great experience to be able to see the buildings in action per se with the kids in. And we had an opportunity at Baker to have a little bit lengthier conversation with the tech teachers, which was a great highlight. They obviously put a lot of time into their students, and they're passionate about what they're doing there in the tech department. And at Derby and Eldon, both TJ and Tom, thank you. We're both great. The kids down at Eldon just adore Tom, and they do a lot down there with the space that they're provided, and they were happy to see us there. And Derby was going through some state testing, so their day was a little bit off, but it was great to see the different, the kids in the classrooms and being utilized, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Brian has a new nickname, Captain Crunch.
I'll just add thanks to all the principals and staff that, know it's a very busy time of the day, but thank you all for taking the time to give us tours through your buildings, and it was great to see the action of the day. So, appreciate it.
And then on March 31st, we also did the same thing, scheduled at Palmer Elementary. Does anyone have anything they want to say about that visit?
I'll pipe in again. Again, it was great for me, and I had only seen Van Buren and Eldon, so Palmer was, it was a nice addition to see, and the kids were excited. We were able to take part in, they do an honoree student on Fridays, and it was for humor, right, I believe, guys? Was it? So it was really great to see the kids see who was going to be in that classroom today, and Alex did a great job with this tour and showing us around, so thank you.
We learned that the students really liked the pizza parties with the principal. And we had our communications committee meeting prior to our board of meeting tonight. Does anyone on the committee have anything they want to report out on that?
So we had a lot on our agenda, so I can start us off if anyone wants to add in. Sarah talked to us about a photo contest that she's putting together, so all kids in all buildings are going to be able to submit photos, which will go into the calendar. We'll honor the winners at board meeting spotlights. There's going to be 3 photographers as judges, Jason and Jen, and winners from each grade level. So we'll have elementary, Ray, Durkee, and Baker. So it sounded like a great opportunity for our kids for the rest of this year. We talked about our school calendar, our printed calendar. There was a discussion about Father's Day and Columbus Day. Both holidays will be placed back into the calendar, plus Indigenous Peoples Day will be added. We talked about the price to print the calendar, and the figure of $7,000 came up, but that wasn't a concrete amount. And a suggestion was made, maybe we can ask, who really likes to get the printed calendars and only print those, or continue to print them for everyone in the district. So I think that's going to be an ongoing conversation. So they will be printed for next calendar or next school year. We talked about social media. Facebook is active. Twitter is strong with teachers and administrators. There was discussion on updating our website. The book selections were updated on our district website. We talked about the Hive. Our May Hive will have the budget, the polls, and information and board candidate information. And then our June Hive will have the state report card data. We had a discussion about the B logo. And we had a discussion about if we wanted to trademark our B logo and what that would mean. So at some point as a board, we'll have that discussion. We talked about high honor roll and honor roll announcements, if there was a way that we could get this out on social media or put student names in the Hive. It was discussed that we would have to check board policy to see if that's a possibility because we're using student names. I think that's all I have.
You covered the whole list that I had, so thank you very much, Denise. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to speak about that they've attended, or any other district level committees that board members may be part of?
I attended the Code of Conduct Committee, and there were some things that were brought up. We're also having another meeting this Wednesday. We're going through the Code of Conduct as a committee. There have been some changes made from the athletic department in reference to some terminology with vaping and consequences. There was some discussion about, Danielle had indicated that there was some state changes that need to be made as far as terminology with DASA and VADR codes. TJ spoke about the Student Advisory Committee at Durkee and the Code of Conduct, and that will be more discussed on Wednesday's meeting. Hopefully there'll be some students that'll be able to attend. That was more specific to the dress code. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Shelley. Anyone else? Please.
Sorry, I was just looking for the date of the concert because I couldn't remember. So I attended the district-wide orchestra event that was held, I guess now 2 weeks ago. Now I have the correct date in front of me, so I apologize for that. But it was great to see all the orchestras back together, and some of the groups were playing together for the first time, so that was nice to see. It sounded really great, and just having everybody back in the auditorium was a great sight. So did a nice job that night.
Thank you, Frank. Anybody else have anything to share out? Okay, looking ahead, we have a number of building visits coming up, the same as what we've just discussed, but in some of the remaining buildings. I'm not going to read through all of those, but this Wednesday we do have our OC and Boces annual meeting held at the campus in Liverpool. April 8th through the 15th, we have spring break, so there's no school for the students, and the district office is closed for the Good Friday holiday on Friday the 15th. When we return that Monday after the vacation, we have a policy committee meeting, and we have a tenure reception preceding the regular Board of Education meeting that evening. On Thursday the 21st, we have a DEI community event taking place up at Baker High School. And our next, April 25th, we have a Board of Education work session, which will be having discussions about the next phases of the capital project. And then a joint PAT meeting at the end of the month on April 27th. So next up, we have a student board report. So Kaylee.
Thank you. Here we go. April has begun, and staff and students are preparing for the end of the school year and graduation for our seniors. The senior graduation rehearsal and senior picnic will be held on June 21st. In addition, the senior walk will be held on June 21st, where seniors will be bused to their elementary schools to walk with other students from their elementary school. We will also be starting the process of looking for next year's student board member, so applications for that will be made available this Thursday, April 7th. The Dollars for Scholars applications were due last Thursday, March 31st, and Student Advisory Council members are helping to stuff envelopes this week. Student Advisory Council's next meeting will be after April break. Derby and Baker's Health students are excited to have therapy dogs come in to visit from Canine Caring Angels during class soon. Art teachers at Baker have decorated our halls with students' art recently, as I know some board members have seen during the tour last week. Spring sports games and practices have begun, and Baker and Derby's bands had a concert last Wednesday where Mr. Vanderstout announced that our junior and senior drum majors for the upcoming marching band season will be Marissa Gilliland and Katrina McCartney. In the past, Baldwinsville Marching Band has performed at various elementary schools. It used to be called World Tour, but in the past few years we haven't been able to do that. So I'm super excited to announce that this Thursday, Pep Band will be performing at Eldon Elementary as a way to kick off April break for Eldon students and Pep Band members. We're also able to have guests in our buildings now, which means we can have visits from colleges, military, and Boces programs, which is super useful as seniors make their decisions for post-high school. This is a very busy time of the year for our senior class, but it's also a super exciting time as students attend college visits and prepare for a huge transition period. I was able to attend SUNY Cortland for their admitted student day over the weekend, and I know a lot of my friends and peers have college visits over April break.
Thank you, Kaylee. Next up on the agenda, we have public participation. Do you have any speakers tonight? Okay. Public comments are welcome. They're limited to 3 minutes per speaker for a total of up to 30 minutes for all speakers combined. They should not include specific individuals or positions. Unless appropriate, the Board of Education will respond by letter to the individual's comment question. Board members will not engage in conversation or comment during this period. Specific employee or student concerns should be communicated to the superintendent of schools during regular business hours. If there are more than 5 individuals speaking on the same issue, please limit the topic to just 5 speakers of your choice as a group. We are all here for our students, and it is expected that everyone speaking tonight will follow these rules, and everyone present will model the behaviors that are expected of students in this school district. Kim?
Our speaker tonight is Claudine Holtman in regards to district email correspondence. Is that good? Okay, so I'm here to talk about the segment of the district's March 11th email correspondence regarding the You okay? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll start again. I'm here to talk about a segment of the district's March 11th email correspondence regarding the parental rights and education bill. We are wondering the following. Why would you refer to this bill, which by the way was signed in Florida, not in New York, as anything other than its official title? To include the media-created title for it in an official correspondence from the leader of our district is not representative of the character we would like in our district administration. If you personally read the title of the bill and the bill itself, it seems that you would either remain neutral on the subject or applaud the bill as a means to gain a stronger partnership with parents. Your statements, is that okay? Your statements veered the district into more polarization than a path to unity. In your email, why would you use the word controversial to describe the parental rights and education bill in that email? Can you hear me? The text of the Florida bill reinforces the fundamental rights of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children. How is it a controversy to refrain from talking about any sexuality among grade K through 3 students? Can this group of kids not be burdened with adult topics? Let them think about things that are appropriate for their developmental level, like what cartoon they will watch later, or what snack their parents packed for them, or how about an up-and-coming play date. Sexuality and gender identity are developmentally inappropriate for this group. If parents want to introduce and develop these topics with their 4 to 8-year-olds, they can do so in their own homes. Anyone who reads the district's mission statement, views and reads some text used in classrooms, and reviews the agendas for training for staff can clearly see that you are fully dedicated to the CRS framework. The district should be focused on the academic learning gap in Beeville students and being creative in reclaiming the learning experiences our kids missed out on. If I'm reading the district report card correctly, only 55% of our K through 9 students are at or above grade level in reading, and only 65 at or above grade level in math. Let's redirect our energy in supporting all kids in reaching their academic potential that was thwarted by COVID. Let's prepare them for jobs, college, or tech school in their futures. As leaders of our district, we want to remind you that you should be valuing all parents' perspectives and refraining from what is so popular to do in our society now, which is to appeal to a so-called one side. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is item 7, the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Brian first. Second, Shelley. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Next, we move on to the leadership report.
Thanks, Jen. So what we'd like to do is have our textbook adoption discussion. And then I'd like to invite the curriculum and instruction team and our teachers to come forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you for having us speak tonight. So we're here to answer your questions regarding the 2 grade 6 picture books that were up for adoption at the last meeting. The grade teachers in a moment will introduce themselves, but we wanted to start off with a quick TikTok video about mentor texts.
As we continue my series on picture books at the secondary level, let's talk about why they make fabulous mentor texts. Side note, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of mentor texts,
Mentor texts are any kind of writing that's a good example. They're often read repeatedly, and they serve as models for author's craft and structure. Because mentor texts are read over and over again, it helps if they're short, so we can read it many times over the course of a unit. So, picture books have the benefit of being short, but do they make good mentor texts? Some people might worry that they're not rigorous enough. They worry that they're not challenging enough for older writers. Well, what does the research say? Let's look at a 2017 study that was published in the Journal of Literacy, Research, and Instruction. This study specifically focused on using picture books as mentor texts in a 10th grade classroom. This study focused on 3 of the 6+1 writing traits. Specifically, they focused on word choice, sentence fluency, and convention. So what do you think the study found? Results of the study indicated that both low-level students and high-level students benefited from the use of picture books in a 10th grade English classroom. One reason that they suggested that the study had positive results was because picture books are engaging. They had illustrations to hook lower level students, and because they were engaging, it was something that students were willing to return to again and again, which is a must-have for a mentor text. You need to be willing to go back to the mentor text again and again to see how that author does those things. Let's pull a specific quote from the study. Advanced students found more creative ways to add meaning and depth to their writing, and lower level students learned basic convention rules. Sounds like a win to me. Picture books make great mentor texts, even at the secondary level. As we continue my series on...
So as shared in the video and in the material Superintendent Thompson shared with all of you, these books are being used as mentor texts. Mentor texts provide equal access to all students because the teacher is reading it aloud. It eliminates that barrier of the student's readability level. And they are usually short and engaging. So one could say the TikTok video is used as a mentor text now because it was short, it was engaging, and we can now zoom in and revisit it for some specific content. Lexile levels, because I know that was a question from before, Lexile levels are not important when it comes to a mentor text. Lexile levels are only in play when students are doing the reading, but in a mentor text, they're read aloud, so the Lexile level doesn't play into it. They provide an example of good writing, author's craft, and literary conventions. Often, teachers will read a variety of picture books in the beginning of the year, as it helps also to create a welcoming classroom community. Then those teachers can strategically revisit that book during the year. They can open it up, just zoom into a certain section saying, you know, we read this book back in September, but I want to bring you to close attention to this page for this purpose. So the books tonight can be read as class read-alouds in September, and then the teacher can pull them out later, okay, to zoom in for those specific purposes. So to further explain how these two specific books will be used, I'm going to turn it over to the team and let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. So my name is Cheryl Morrison, and I teach 6th grade at Ray. And when I think about the books that we've chosen, The Last Stop on Market Street and The Proudest Blue, I think about the many purposes that those books will serve. As a parent, I enjoy reading books like these to my young sons before they go to bed or rainy day when we're snuggling up on the couch. Both are enjoyable, they're beautiful photos, and they have a very strong message. However, as an educator, I'm looking at these books through a completely different lens. How does the author craft this story? And how do they craft the message for different audiences? So one of the standards we address in 6th grade centers on analyzing how a particular sentence fits into the overall structure of the text and then contributes to the development of the theme. So to do this requires a great deal of work with another standard, asking the students to determine the meaning of words and phrases as they're used in the text, and then analyzing the impact of a specific word and word choices in tone and mood. And so The Last Stop on Market Street allows students several opportunities to do this with regards to figurative language. So if you indulge me, one of the pages, CJ is the little boy in the story. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him a feeling of magic. And so in our classrooms, we would ask the students to notice the use of figurative language and consider how it impacts the tone and the mood of the story. A discussion around this particular passage, and one earlier where the author states the outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, would help them determine a theme. Which, again, there's another passage that we would want to direct them to, and CJ saw the perfect rainbow arching over the soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he had never thought to look. And so finally, as an educator, we're thinking about how these books serve as a model for students' own writing. How will they craft themes in their narrative writing? What word choices will have the most impact when they're responding to literature and nonfiction text? And finally, when our sixth graders conduct research, they'll read more critically and they'll notice and consider how an author's word choice and tone are used to support a claim. So again, these are just a few of the ways that we thought we could use Last Stop on Market Street.
Hi, I'm Jess Wells. I teach sixth grade at Ray also. Just a couple examples, actually hitting the same standards that Sherelle was talking about from the Proudest Blue. Another great mentor text to teach that figurative language word choice as it relates to the overall mood and tone of the story. One example says, Asiya's hijab isn't a whisper. Asiya's hijab is like the sky on a sunny day. The sky isn't a whisper, it's always there, special and regular. And actually this author goes on to repeat that pattern several times throughout the text. So when we talk with our students, we analyze, why did the author choose to use figurative language here? What does this figurative language mean? Why does the author choose to repeat this several times in the story, and how does it impact the tone of the story? And then not only do we want our students to understand this as we're teaching it, but we want them to apply it during their own reading, and ultimately we want them to write like that as well when they go to write their narrative pieces. So this quick mentor text will allow them to take more risks and go back to analyze, and they'll be more confident in this skill. This is just one way we could use these two texts for figurative language theme, but there are several other standards we could hit using these two texts. Thank you.
So take any questions you might have regarding these texts.
I did pick up the books. I did have a chance to take them home and read them, as well as my family. So I found them to be outstanding. As far as mentor texts, I guess I didn't read into that part. The part I got out of them, and thank you for your critical description of how the kids will use them. I took them just as exposing our students to maybe some topics that they aren't aware of. For instance, the Proudest Blue. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 6 months when I was in the Air Force. I had no idea why the women wore hijabs. That gives kind of, I wish I had read that before. It would have given me a little context to understand the culture I was immersed in so I think just introduce, the other one is, Last Stop on Market Street. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, similar to what lots of our kids here grow up in. But my dad lived in Chicago, so I got to spend a lot of time there and, taking the L in and taking the bus in and seeing other things. So, to me, this actually brought back some memories of when I was visiting him and seeing things that I didn't see in my own hometown. So, to me, it was more exposing them to the topics in there. I guess that's why I'm an engineer, not an English person, because I didn't even think of all the other benefits that you guys can bring in. So, thank you for picking those. Thank you for letting us share these so we could read through them, and I enjoyed reading them, so thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Before we leave, I just have something that I would like to read to you. 83 years. 83 years is a very long time. Just to put it into perspective, 83 years ago was the year 1939, the year Germany invaded Poland, which became the catalyst for World War II. 83 years is also the combined teaching experience that my 4 colleagues and I used when we recommended books to supplement the 6th grade ELA curriculum. Through the years, I have had the opportunity to hone my craft by participating in many workshops and conferences, many supplied by the district, but far more paid out of pocket. Yes, my own time and money to teach me how to be an even better educator. Columbia University's Teacher College is a personal favorite. Many Saturdays, weeknights, and summer days have been spent attending in-person and virtual training sessions, ranging from the art of teaching using graphic novels to how to conduct writing conferences while teaching remotely. I have served on many committees and dedicated countless hours to the parents and students of this district. As you can see, my students are important, and reaching all students at their level is paramount to their success. So imagine my surprise when I heard comments from board members regarding the adoption of 2 books for the 6th grade ELA classes. While I can understand the question of why these books are being recommended for 6th grade when they have such a low complexity level, the comment about the correlation between the 1,805 students who are on watch, need intervention or urgent intervention, and the need to, quote, challenge ourselves more is alarming and frankly unacceptable, as if these books represented our desire to lower the bar for our students. On the forms that were submitted, it states that these choices are meant to be companion books. Hours and hours were spent after school choosing great appropriate books and filling out all the necessary forms. Time that could have been spent with our families. I have to wonder if these forms were even looked at. If they were, one would see the wonderful and great appropriate ways they will be used in our classrooms to reach all students' levels. The deeper heart of the matter is the apparent lack of trust and belief in the teachers of the district. Teachers who come to school every single day and give every ounce of ourselves to our students. Teachers who have extensive expertise in the field of education. Teachers who love their students as if they are their own. Trusting and working with teachers should be an important function of the Board of Education. Instead, when the board questions teachers' commitment to student achievement, we as teachers see you choosing to create roadblocks instead of valuing our role in student success. We need you to stand behind us and support us, not create obstacles in front of us. My name is Mary Ellen Jurista. I'm a 20-year veteran of teaching, all at Ray Middle School, all in the Baldwinsville district, and I am a proud educator. Thank you.
The board would like to thank.
I have a question.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. My
I
board
have a
colleague
quick
just
question
asked
that I
me a
think can
question.
easily be answered. Has the question ever been answered about why the lifestyle level K through 2 is utilized as we're doing today? Has that ever been answered? Has it ever been asked?
I did answer it, and I
No,
explained.
I'm not saying that you didn't answer it today. I'm saying before today.
I don't know. I do know that many picture books have been adopted by previous boards for upper grades, and it's never been a question, okay?
So it's never been a question by previous boards?
No.
So you've never had the conversation we just had tonight where it was explained why those books can be so useful and why they were
No,
chosen?
because I think the previous boards understood we knew what we were picking up and how to use them.
You're assuming the previous boards understood that, so there was no question?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And perhaps just one other comment, because I know it was, sorry.
No, I just need to know.
Okay. Just a couple of points, because I think some of the comments are being taken out of context, and I think that's I think there's a lot of gross generalizations that have been made. Look, we respect the teachers of our district without question, okay? So I'm a volunteer just like everybody else up here. We all have our
our day jobs that we do. We volunteer our time because our kids are important to us. Our district is important to us. Your jobs are important to us. We want to make sure that we support you as much as we can. But imagine you coming to my office and sitting down and talking to me about air traffic control systems or radar systems or something. I would bet that you probably don't have the context about what we do every single day. Just like most of us don't have the context about what you guys do in the classroom every day. We view your jobs through the lens of a parent. But we have a much different level of responsibility as a board member to really understand and what's being taught in the classrooms, not necessarily from a questioning your judgment or putting you under a microscope to question what you do on a day-to-day basis. To my colleague's point, Mr. Germano's point, is that we'd like to have some insight into that. When we look at the data, and I'll go back to the data, 44% of our kids are struggling with reading. So if I'm a straight data guy. If I look at those numbers, that's alarming to me. So if we, as we're starting to look at the lens of how we improve our student participation, how they're prepared for jobs, when they show up to my workforce and I'm ready to employ them or anybody else's, that we have done our job as a district to prepare them for life. So again, viewing this through the eyes of one board member who looks at a set of data, I don't know what's behind it. So we appreciate you coming in and explaining to us what's behind the book selection, because we've never had that. I wasn't on a previous board. Mr. Germano was not on a previous board. So for us, we're starting from scratch. So having that insight is important for us. So I appreciate the insight. That gives us a little bit more context about how different articles of text are selected to use for education, but we never had that before. So thank you for that, appreciate it. And I personally take umbrage to the fact that all teachers are under a microscope. You're not. Okay, back to my previous point of we just want to understand. I just want to understand. That's why I ask a lot of questions. So if it comes across as attacking you and your profession, it's not intended to be that way. We're just trying to get a better understanding because we represent the larger community. So thank you for coming in tonight. I know it's a burden to be away from your families, but certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just piggyback on that once more. I want to be 100% clear that I am 100 billion% behind the teachers of Baldwinsville. I chose to move to this community because of you teachers. This is the best place for my children. That's what my wife and I decided. We could have moved anywhere we wanted to, and we moved here. So the questions that I raised just about the Lexile level is because of lack of knowledge, because I'm not a professional educator like you are. So the answer is when you provide that, and the TikTok video, although she talked really fast, that information now gives me the information I need to say, oh, that's what it's for. So I think the general public may look at that Lexile level and take that and say, geez, K-2, what does that mean? Now we know, and I appreciate that. But I want to be 100% clear that a questioning about that is not a questioning of the professionals of Baldwinsville Central School District. Again, I chose to come here with my family. We chose to here because of you. And I thank you for everything you've done. My kid started school at a time where his life was turned upside down, but your lives were turned upside down, inside out, side to side. You were basically put in like one of those paint shakers. And what you did for my children, my son and now my daughter who's also in school, what you have done for my children and for all the children of Baldwinsville, I have a lot of pride in that. I really do, and I want you to know that going forward, that I have so much pride in that. I'm new to this community, and I want to get on this board because I think it's fantastic what you do. I have more pride in that than anything I can talk about in the last, since we've been here as the Baldwinsville School District. So I want you to understand that I can't speak for the whole board, but I am behind you. I want to continue the tradition of Baldwinsville being the school district where people move to. So I thank you for that, and I want you to know that. I do, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks.
I will just close with saying, that we appreciate your volunteerism and all that you put in. But if you were to rewatch the board meeting last time, it wasn't a question about, gee, we'd like to know more about those texts. There was comments made that we're not challenging our students, and that's the concern. So we're not being rigorous enough. So there was a question about the quality of teaching happening. So it's different than just saying we would like to know more about the text, which absolutely you have the right to. And that's the narrative of like connecting that, gee, these texts aren't rigorous, that's why the scores are so low, and going right there, that's what I think hit a nerve, to be honest with you. So, but thank you.
I appreciate that, but I was, I actually was asking for more information right there. Personally, I was asking at that meeting, and
Right.
I know it's not the Roberts rules, and I don't want to throw that off, and I certainly have respect for that, but, I was saying that I just wanted more information about it, because, help me understand, and you have, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I just wanted to say, I know there seems to be a lot of narratives in our community right now, and going forward, Jason, if you are confused about what board members are asking, please reach out and ask. Because that gap and those feelings that are obviously coming out tonight maybe can be cleared up, and you can know what certain board members are asking for.
And again, respectfully, I'll ask you to go back and watch the last board meeting, and you'll hear the questions and how they were phrased from this board. So, and I'm not going to argue, but I think that's why the comments were made. And I think you just need to look and see how it was asked. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out, because I know it was an extra step, and to what Tony was saying, and Jason just asked me because he wasn't here at the last board meeting, how do we handle, it would have been very much more convenient to have Beth Chetney answer their question, but we're also trying to, after previous board meetings, just keep the order of the board meetings flowing the way they're supposed to with Robert's Rules of Order. And I did feel badly about that teachers would need to come back. It's nighttime, you're supposed to be with your families right now. You spend all day with our kids, and we appreciate that. From a board perspective, I think that the questions that we have, this is a very engaged board. I'm actually very proud of that, because I've seen it progress that way. Questions are good. I think that's what we're trying to instill in all of our students. We want our kids to be inquisitive and ask questions. I guess, if you kind of look at it like this, we don't know, and we're all learning and trying to grow as a team as well. And we have had a lot of turnover, and there's a lot of things happening, and a lot of stakeholders that we need to listen to, and the pressures that we feel are enormous, because this is our profession. Yes, I was a teacher, but I haven't done it for a long time, and certainly not in the areas that are being questioned right now. And we're trying to balance all of that and do the best that we can. But we support the teachers, and we open ourselves up to questions, and we're trying to open up those channels of communication with your leadership, so we all have an understanding of each other's positions and roles and responsibilities. But thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, guys. Danielle, could you come up, please? Danielle's going to be speaking about the New York State School Report Card. And it's not as in-depth or as exciting as the other presentation that she's put together. So
it's still just as exciting. Good evening, everyone. I am here tonight to talk about the New York State School Report Card, which obviously is different from our district's report card, which I've most recently presented to you on. As far as the state school report card goes for the current school year, if you recall, this is an annual report, so I know that this might actually be the first time that some of you are hearing this report. The state report card really is a year behind because typically we're waiting for information on state assessment scores and whatnot. So the data that has been used and posted for the 21-22 school year and our current accountability designations that are related to that are based on, again, the previous year. So in summary, what you see on the slide is that we have 6 schools who continue to be in good standing, which has not changed from the previous year. We have 2 schools who have been identified for targeted support and intervention, and they continue to work on their plans for improvement. And the district as a whole has been identified as a target district, which again is not a different accountability designation than the last 2 school years, given the current circumstances with the pandemic. So we just finished testing our students in grades, book 1, I should say, of grades 5 and 6 today. Tomorrow they're wrapping up the full assessment, and we'll have completed our ELA assessments for the year, and then we will complete our math in a few weeks here. So moving forward, for our 22-23 school year report card, we will be resuming the accountability designations that have been paused. So we'll see where things stand once we get those results back. But again, right now, everything has really been on hold for the last couple of years. So the update, or what's really new, is that it will be reinstated for accountability purposes as we move forward. But any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. A couple questions. So, just trying to navigate the state site. It doesn't. Is this just a continuation of what we knew with the DSIP last year, and that's still the reason why we're targeted? Okay. Just trying to navigate here. It just seems like it's just the same data presented on different pages over and over again. So it doesn't really dive into that.
As far as the state's report card goes, yes, it really is set up in a way that there's a central district site that is the summary of all of the different buildings, but then it's set up so that you can actually click through each building's data and drill in a little bit as far as, enrollment, state testing. Obviously, the high school has some different measures given the grade level of the students, but they have pretty much the same format on the state's report card as they have in the past as well.
Thank you, Janelle.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. Denton.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here, and I've had the unique pleasure and honor of working with some former teachers and really community mentors of mine on a very cool project that they would like to share with you this evening regarding the Baldwinsville Community Hall of Fame for Visual and Performing Arts. So with that, I would like to turn it over to probably one of my favorite people on the planet, honestly, and a mentor and a teacher of mine that is a true example of the finest that have spent their careers here educating in the Baldwinsville Central School District. So I want to turn it over to Mrs. Carol Jacoby and community member Mr. Todd Hoban.
Thank you, Chris. Chris goes way back. He was our Pelennor in Camelot, and was in the jazz group here. So yes, and here he is, principal of the school I taught. So good evening to the Board of Education and to Superintendent Thompson. As a Carol Jacoby, and we've been working hard over the past 2 years, just before the pandemic, trying to get this organization off the floor. But we're here tonight to seek some support from the Board of Education and continuing to form this and talk over. We'll take over from there.
Like all of you, why does the musician get the feedback? I can't believe it.
Can you hear me okay? Good enough?
We can hear you, but the people at home won't be able to hear you.
Well, let me go over here and let's see if this one works any better.
How does that happen?
It's your electric personality.
Yeah, maybe from here. Yeah. Okay. Like you, I moved here a long time ago because it was Baldwinsville. I'm lucky. I get to live wherever I want. And usually my manager says, you know, Nashville is really nice. So is Los Angeles. I like Baldwinsville. I came here, like many of you, because the school and this community, this culture. And I'll share one story. A young man, seems like yesterday, little guy walked into our studio. Our studio's in Baldwinsville, New York. And he walked in and his eyes just lit up. He was 8 years old. And he saw all the instruments, you know, on the walls and the big speakers and all this fabulous equipment. And he started riding his bike over to the studio to hang out and just learn. How does this stuff all work? And how does music work? Can I play that guitar? Yeah, sure. Can I play that keyboard? Sure. Anyway, eventually, he, a Baldwinsville kid, he came right here. And he studied with these fabulous teachers that we got to hear tonight. And he graduated from Baldwinsville High School, went to NYU, very tough curriculum in computers and entertainment and music. And did you guys watch the Grammys last night? It's my biggest night of the year. I love the Grammys. Last night, that little 8-year-old boy, who's now 22, was nominated for a Grammy Award. That is why we're doing this. A bunch of mostly parents, mostly community members, people who are singers and players and artists, got together to just celebrate some of the wonderful talent that we have watched blossom right here in our beautiful town, this community that we love. And the good news is, as Carol said, we ask for your support. It's more like a blessing. We don't need your support. And she's here to explain how this is going to be the easiest thing for you to just listen to. And I'm sorry I didn't bring my guitar. I would have much rather just played for you. Here's Carol.
So, we're not looking for financial support, we just like you to be behind us as this goes forward. We've done some things already. We're incorporated as a nonprofit organization. We now have our tax exemption number, and I just submitted the 501c3 to the IRS, and we're waiting for that one for approval. So we are self-supporting then as an organization, and we'll be raising money through community activities, donations, program ads, and things like that. That's about it. Any questions?
I support you.
Thank you. So we hope to have this happening in the fall. Let's fill those halls back up with all those pictures. Yes. I miss those pictures.
And Mr. Denton took us on a nice tour, right? He showed us exactly where all of those things are going to be going.
And more information will be provided to the community with regards to nominations for inductees, and we'll keep everybody aware of any kind of upcoming induction ceremony or any activities related to the organization. And we greatly appreciate your support.
So it sounds like we're just waiting on you to fill this hallway. We look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Kim, the 2022-23 state aid analysis, please.
So unfortunately or fortunately, this is the same document that we looked at the last meeting. We were hoping that the state would have adopted their budget so we could finalize these numbers. But we did adopt our budget at the last meeting, and as we get more information on the FAMA state aid runs, we'll bring this back to the board again. So it's nothing different than you saw the last time, unfortunately.
Any questions? No? Moving right along. Mr. DeBarbery, can you go over some of the policy reviews and kind of summarize the policy meeting?
Yep, so the policy committee at the last meeting went through the 1,000 series, which there was a lot there. Some minor changes, nothing substantive. You'll see small language changes in red. Baldwinsville Central School District, referred to as district, superintendent of schools, parentheses, superintendent, things of that nature. But the policy committee, I mean, they went through and are doing what they can to get through the review, which again, we haven't, last time a lot of these policies were reviewed was in 2018, so kudos to that group. Are there questions before the review? There's one policy that will be taken back to the only 1,000 series, 1120, that's not appearing here. That'll be for discussion at the April 18th meeting, and hopefully at the May meeting we'll come back with a recommendation for an update. Questions?
Thank you, Joe. We know it was a lot of work for you, and I know we were joking during that meeting, but we started some of the work that Joe was talking about. We started in further series when we did the review when I started on the board. So what we're doing is kind of catching it up, so the entire document, it reads, has the same language. But it was definitely a lot of work.
Thank you, Joe. And then we have 2 field trip requests.
So the first trip request is for the crew team to participate in the New York State Rowing Championships in Saratoga. You'll see the information attached. This will appear at the next meeting for approval. Again, similar to the other trips that have been approved, we're excited to have our student athletes participating in some state championships as well as out-of-area events. Questions on that trip? The other trip that's listed under Report D is for the marching band. The one area that I do want to highlight here, this is a little bit unique. This trip occurs over the summer, right after graduation, over the July 4th weekend. And so, similar to what we did with the Macy's parade, you're going to see in a future board meeting all of the current seniors who are choosing to participate in this trip. They're going to come through as volunteers that you'll have to approve under the consent agenda because they're no longer students. And so in order to cover them and participate, they're going to be listed as volunteers. The other piece that we're going to highlight based on our conversation with students sharing beds, again, that's not our common practice now. It's so that every student has their own sleeping quarter. In this case, because of the cost and the number of students and the number of beds that would be needed, it would just be astronomical to have that additional cost. So a letter after advice from legal counsel will be going out to families so that they know that if they absolutely do not want to have students share a bed, they have the ability to make sure that they request that. So we will accommodate, again, sticking with our practice, but given the sheer numbers here, I mean, it's possible that we wouldn't be able to fit everyone in one hotel because of other coverage. I mean, you're looking at 50 rooms if you take 100 students and 2 to a room. Questions? So again, the marching band's excited to participate also in another event outside of the area.
Thank you, Joe. Pardon me? Yes, ma'am. New business.
Okay, moving on to new business this evening. Item A, textbook adoption. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the textbook adoption of The Proudest Blue by Taji Muhammad to be used in grade 6 ELA classes at Ray Middle School pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Joan first, Jeff second. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item B, another textbook adoption. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the textbook adoption of Last Stop on Market Street by Matt de la Pena to be used in grade 6 ELA classes at Ray Middle School pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Shelley first. I think that was Jeff second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item C, resolved that the Board of Education approve the textbook adoption of Hal Leonard Guitar Method Book 1 by Will Schmidt and Greg Cook to be used in grades 10 through 12. Introduction to Guitar class at Baker High School pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Brian first, Jeff second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item D, resolved that the Board of Education adopt the Baldwinsville Central School District 2022-2023 property tax report card pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? You guys tied. Joan first, Jeff second. Jeff, you're getting a lot of seconds today. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item E, resolved that the Board of Education approve the OCM Boces copy release agreement pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first, Denise second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item F, resolved that the Board of Education approve the disposal of surplus equipment and instructional materials pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Joan first. Shelley second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the annual reorganizational meeting to be held during the first 15 days in July of 2022. Can I have a motion, please? I think that was Frank first. Second. Second, Jeff. The reorg meeting is actually going to be scheduled for July 11th, 2022. So we're doing the resolution for the first 15 days, but we do have a date. Any questions or discussion about that? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Resolved that the Board of Education authorize the Superintendent of Schools to execute on behalf of the collective bargaining agreement between the Baldwinsville Central School District and the Baldwinsville Educational Support Professionals, July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education fund the collective bargaining agreement between the Baldwinsville Central School District and the Baldwinsville Educational Support Professionals, July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Move. Joan first. Second, Shelley. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Next item, item I, resolved that the Board of Education approve a memorandum of agreement between the Baldwinsville Central School District and the Baldwinsville Teachers Association. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first. Denise second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. We now move on to board roundtable. I do have one topic. I was contacted by Mark Dangler from RMS, and we did that employee satisfaction survey last year. And if you remember when he met with us to review it, he said it's good to do these once a year to see where you are. And I wanted to see where the board stood on this right now, because I told him I'd give him an answer as to whether we're going to do it now. But I did put it out there. It's been a year, but we've had a lot of transition in the district, and a lot of the work and the results that we saw, we really couldn't start beginning that work until we had a superintendent in place. So I'm not sure if this is something we'd like to think about doing now as per recommendation of their normal process, or something we'd like to push out into the next school year.
I would say with everything going on, I'm okay with waiting till next school year.
Yeah, I was gonna second, I can say, because Jason, when we did it, he wasn't even here, so he's got his time another year, then we do it again.
I agree completely, but I'm only one of 9. I totally.
And I also think that we've given some surveys for our policy committee too, to our staff, so that might be a lot right now.
And I agree with that as well. So I'll contact Mark tomorrow and let him know that we're looking to do it like mid-fall possibly. But we'll bring that back around in the fall.
So I had emailed everybody and given everybody a heads up that I wanted to bring up the capital project. So I just wanted to ask everybody if we could spend a few minutes tonight before we have our work session at the end of the month to kind of talk about next steps. If we could kind of just give a brief summary of how we got here, because the narratives that I'm hearing from people who are approaching me are all over the place. And some of those being, 2 or 3 board members, dismiss the original project. The new board members dismiss the original project. This board does not support certain aspects of our district or programs. This one's my favorite. The women dismissed the project. So I want to just spend a few minutes just kind of talking about how we got here. So I went back, I took the time to go back and look at my own notes. I went back and looked at video of our board meetings and kind of compiled a list from, who had comments about where we were. And some of those meetings were long. Some of them were like 4.5 hours where we had discussions. And so this is not just from Denise Falso. These are comments that came from about 6 board members who were asking for us to kind of slow down and maybe revisit the project. So some of those things that were listed or talked about, that the pandemic changed people's lives. Some are struggling, and the pandemic hit some of those families hard. Some board members talked about inflation, the cost of food, the cost of gas, escalating construction costs. Some other concerns that were brought up from board members were our families are struggling to purchase items for holidays, and specifically Halloween was talked about. And then that rolled into the tax increase. How can we ask our families to pay that amount? There was a discussion about the amount of state aid, that we kind of weren't getting as much as we possibly could. We talked about maybe doing things in phases as debt falls off, or just doing it in phases. So what we couldn't do now, we could possibly talk about doing it like the next step. And then I think there were questions about how the grade level realignment came about, and people just had questions about that. But I think the biggest point, I know this one was for me, the biggest point was that one of our consultants was completely transparent with this board about how we as a board would have to make some pretty difficult decisions moving forward regarding our operational budget. So we would be looking at maybe potentially a 10 to 12% tax increase, or we would have to make decisions to cut programs for kids. So all of those things that's what I picked out from rewatching those videos and looking at my notes. And that was a majority of the board. It was about 6 or 7 board members. So how we got to this point of our capital project was 6 or 7 board members asked if we could go back and maybe potentially think about these topics and maybe see if there was a better way that we could move forward. And that's how we got to the present moment. And so I think I really want to specify that no one on this board has ever said we do not support certain programs in our district or aspects of our district. No one on this board has ever discredited the work put into the original project. We were just trying, from what I saw in the notes, we all were trying to be fiscally responsible and think about where we are in the moment after a pandemic. So I don't know if anybody else would like to contribute, but I know that what was written in the Hive, when people come to me and ask me questions about the capital improvement project, it says in here, I know that one of the reasons that was put in here is escalating construction costs, but these tables are fantastic. How it compares the original scenario to what we're doing now, it shows how we're maximizing state aid, and we're trying to think of our taxpayers and keeping that at a minimal cost. And someone did say, well, how come a neighboring district is doing a project that's in the 70 million? I don't remember the exact figure, 71 million or 79. It's a completely different scenario, you know. In this, I know over the past 3 years, I've learned a lot about like the budgets and how to read that and so on. But you know, they maximize state aid. There's no impact to their taxpayers, but that's just how they're set up. It's a bigger tax burden. Like they have more taxpayers. There's more people, and that's a whole other story. But it's just an interesting conversation to have with people. So I encourage whoever is watching to read this in the Hive. I think that the website also, it has great tables. I think it explains it, and I don't know if anybody else wants to contribute to what I said tonight, but I really think that we as a board, I mean, should be helping with the narrative that's out there right now and making it a positive one, because that's what I've been hearing. So.
I thank you for going through all of that and pulling all of those comments out, because I would say the thing that has been lacking up until this year were the types of conversations that we've been having, and we need to understand that type of stuff. That's probably why we ask questions, a lot of questions, way more than I ever remember, you know, sitting out in the audience as a, you know, parent and a community member, being able to intelligently speak to what we're doing, what we're approving, why not. I've been disappointed with the narrative out there myself, because I've heard it in, you know, meetings with other groups. I've heard it from community members. It's not accurate, because anyone who understands how a board of education works, one or two people can't make a decision. It wasn't the women, it wasn't one or two board members. You need 5 people to be on the same page for anything to go forward or not go forward. So I appreciate you for bringing that, because it has been quite disappointing, and what we're trying to do is get what we can for our kids. We're all here for the kids, and unfortunately we can't do everything at once, and there's been a lot going on. And when I'm out in the community and I have people asking, are you going to raise our taxes again? Why are we having a project this big? What do we need that for? Well, I don't know. I missed a lot of the conversations, because a lot of them happened at a committee level. But I do in my heart believe that going forward, you know, it's going to help having our committee meetings recorded. That's for the benefit of the community. That's also a benefit to us, if we're not on that committee, to be brought up to speed and be able to review and understand how we got from point A to B, and there's no more gaps when we're going to be asked to be making very big decisions for our taxpayers and our students.
Denise, thanks for going through and pointing out some of those key points, because I was sitting here thinking, you know, I've heard things as well, and some of those things I haven't heard, and I just think we as a board need to come together and stick together with the decision that we made. There was a lot of information that was presented to us in the beginning of the school year. Yes, there were 3 new board members, and it's a lot of information, and I know a lot of work went into the reports in the different steering committees, and I don't want people to think that that's pushed aside and under the rug now, because I've heard that a lot lately too, and that is not the case. Unfortunately, we came into a pandemic, and time kind of has stood still. Not to mention how, Denise, you just mentioned, or you indicated, inflation. People have lost their jobs. People don't know how they're going to put food on the table. So we as a board had to consciously make a decision to go out to our taxpayers, our community, to ask for that dollar amount. And with the information that we were provided, I really think we made the best decision going forward, and it's only a work in progress. It's not things that were proposed previously are dead in the water. So to Jen's point, it is a majority. It wasn't 1 or 2 people, and I just think we need to continue to work together, which we are, in asking questions. Asking questions when it comes to this capital project, asking questions this evening for presentations. It's just a learning opportunity for all of us board members to make the best decision for all the students within our district, which is why we're all here sitting at these tables. So thank you.
So while you were watching videos, I was going through a lot of those lengthy reports, trying to understand, you know, where we got to where we were, and, you know, some things I picked up. You know, we started this project thinking back about how important it was because our enrollment's been going up, and we've been getting the enrollment numbers, and we've kind of like flatlined here. And one thing I did find a study that we should be doing that annually, checking those numbers before we're ever putting up a referendum for the taxpayers to vote on. So I want to make sure definitely as we're going forward and things are changing that we are, you know, checking and always reviewing and analyzing to see if there are other options, or maybe one of those options, you know, I'm not sure how we chose that option because we didn't have that board discussion. The advisory committee is charged with putting forward a lot of recommendations for us to consider and have public deliberation. So as we're gathering that data, we have data, but we need to go back and review some of that data that got us started on this path to begin with, to make sure that there's still that need, you know, the programming, and follow through with that. But, you know, we got the advisory group's work that they were charged with working with Dr. Seversky, and then it comes to the board for us to go through those deliberations. I don't know if we need to go through them again, I have no idea. But in time, as we're going through and deciding what's next, I imagine that will be a big topic of conversation at the end of the month at that meeting.
I'll just kind of share a few thoughts maybe from the facility committee point of view, but you know, all good points that Denise brought up. I think for some of us on the facility committee, you know, that the data that came from Funding the Future has, you know, been out there for a couple of years, and we've used that to kind of shape what the facility committee's been talking to. You know, I understand the concern about the high price tag, and as we've spoken before, we could have restructured that to maybe have the, like, I think Oswego is the one we've been using as kind of an example where you can lay out kind of a 10-year plan so that, you know, you can limit the impacts but still start implementing so that we have a long-range plan, not, okay, let's do this and then we'll figure out what we're doing later kind of approach. So I think what really kind of ground everything to a halt, though, was the very basic building block of that whole plan was the restructuring of grades and bringing, you know, we talked about 5th, 6th at Ray, 7th, 8th, 9th at Durkee, and then keeping Baker the same, and then that would allow us to expand into the elementaries for pre-K. So, but that, you know, shame on us for not, you know, getting that data out there more to the board. That stuff's been documented. It was shared with the board on, I believe, the Friday letter or email, I can't remember, but you know, that's not new data. It's just new to some board members. So, you know, shame on us for not getting that information out there more readily. But I think when we do meet on the 24th, we really got to decide on what is our basic goal here. If it's to do that, I think we have a pretty good plan to get there. Now we just have to structure it in a way so that this board, or probably by the time we got around to doing that, it's next year's board, but by the time we got to that, could we do a long-range plan so that ultimately the foundation of that is to have our, you know, those restructured grades. We couldn't get there because not enough people were understood that, where it came from, how we, okay, so shame on us as a board to not get that information out there. But that's my goal, is when we walk away on the 24th, we at least have some understanding of that basic building block of where we're headed. And then we'll figure out the pieces from there. I mean, because the thing that's up for vote right now impacts a school. It impacts a school and will impact the students that are there in approximately 4 years. So, you know, unfortunately, the timeline on these projects are so long that no matter what we do now, it'll be the 5th, the 6th, 7th year from there where those things start hitting. So, you know, we got to start thinking long term and get these kind of things in place. So I hope the 24th can kind of bring us all together of getting there. I do hope that, you know, I'm looking forward to in July, we maybe get some new people on that facility committee so that we can start, you know, it's kind of been the same people for a few years. So I'm very much looking forward to handing that off to somebody who hasn't been on the facility committee, and, you know, some people that, you know, spoken today. I hope you guys, you know, get involved with the facility committee so that we can spread that wealth, you know, and get people more involved in the facility committee, because those are some of the biggest decisions we're going to have over the next few years. So I certainly want everybody on board. So I hope on the 24th, when we come out of there, we've kind of at least got an idea where we're headed so that we can shape that over the next, I don't know, 6, 12 months or whatever before we can go out for vote again and get the next pieces of the puzzle, which hopefully include a lot of the stuff we've talked about, but maybe it changes now. We're in, you know, a little different world than we were when we originally laid those plans. So, you know, there are ways to structure it so we can make it more palatable, but, you know, these are things now that, you know, most of us won't have kids in the district when these things are done. So, you know, we got to think very strategically about where we want to head. So that's my.
Jeff, if I may just jump in as well with the rest of the board, I couldn't say it any better. We, from our admin team and our consultants that we're working with, it's imperative that we have a direction of where are we going with 7th grade, where are we moving 5th grade. And Joe and myself and Kim, we spent a lot of time talking about this, and like I said, I couldn't say it any better, Jeff. We really need direction, and we simply can't drag our feet. Kim, do you want to jump in on some of the talking points that we discussed, since we're on this topic, please?
Just to make sure our community is aware, the meeting is actually on the 25th, I think. So, well, just for clarity's sake, just so I don't want people to be confused. So yes, I think that's absolutely kind of what that discussion is going to be. So just kind of for agenda planning that you guys have figured out since I've been here, I try to plan things out a little bit. Some of the things that we have to kind of talk about is exactly that, the long-range infrastructure, and to include things like Baker renovations, taking the building conditions survey into account, which isn't helping us because it's supposed to be every 5 years, and now we're pushed out closer to 8 or 9 years because of the restructure. To your point, exactly, what are we doing with Durkee? Are we moving 7th grade? And I think these are kind of the order that we should be looking at that meeting. Are we moving 7th grade? What are the instructional benefits of doing that? What's the max cost allowance? When can we actually even go back out for another project with Durkee? And how do we lay that out, like you're talking about, for a long-range plan in some way? So then if we decided to move 7th grade up, I don't know if we will or not, the next logical discussion was, are we moving Ray up? Are we moving 5th grade up to Ray? Again, same discussion, instructional benefits, cost allowance, maximum. How does that all fit in? We've been working on a document with our consultants that shows exactly like what happens when our debt is paid off. What does that mean when we bring debt on, and how does that all line up with the maximum? And it's literally a spreadsheet, so sorry, I'm using my hands, I'm being very literal. But for what year, and what's the maximum cost allowance in each of those buildings? And how does that help us structure to maximize our aid? So I think that was one of the confusing parts too with the initial project we brought forward. We have a percent that we get aided on, so right, it's like 86 cents. And I actually said it most logically last night for the first time, I think. With the original project, we weren't gonna get 100% of that 86. I think we were gonna get 63% of it or something reduced because the whole project wasn't aidable. There's certain things that the state will aid and certain things that they won't. And I really think that's probably the most logical way. If anybody just had a light bulb go off, please, like, I hope we finally made that understandable. So I think that's the next step to look at. And then what are we doing with our elementary schools?
how are we reconfiguring them? Because a few of the things that are falling into that category now are the conversation about Eldon and Van Buren due to the roof structure, and I think especially with the walking tour that Jeff recommended to hit every elementary school, it was very clear to us the differences in those buildings. So when you, not only the roof structure, which is what I've heard about since I started here, but the physical infrastructure that supports those roofs kind of tie our hands in regards to how we can even remodel those. So then from there, we're looking at, okay, well, depending on what decisions are made, are we still talking about building a new elementary school? What does that mean from the aidability point? Are we looking at renovating? Are we looking at adding on? I mean, those discussions keep going on and on and on and on. But I think you're exactly right. That first conversation is about 7th grade, keeping in mind, I'll say it right here, we won't be going back to the table to do that work. But to your point, if we have a long-range plan, we can start maximizing the cost allowances that we have at the other buildings until Durkee is reset, because they reset every 5 years. So hopefully at that work session, we can really get into the weeds and discuss all of that. I know I just threw a whole lot of information at people and I'm starting to see the eyes glass over. But really that's kind of where we're headed, if that makes sense. And I think that's probably what we're looking for more, to make sure that's a good use of our time on the 25th. If those things make sense to be talking about, or if we're totally missing the mark on what the board still needs.
And not to sound like a broken record, but again, it's imperative, we have to have that direction, because if we don't do this timely, we're gonna end up losing money and not maximizing our aid and our debt service. So.
Well, going back to Denise's point, I've gotten the same questions, and I've just gone right through and explained the circumstances, maximizing the state aid when they compare it to the other districts. Any district I talk to, any other board members there say they wouldn't think about putting a project up unless they maximize their state aid. And that's how they were able to do it. I've heard also that some say they were so upset that they would rather just vote it down just for the sake of voting it down. I go, that makes no sense. What they should be doing is supporting this project and supporting the capital reserve so that we have a better capital reserve to support future projects down the road. So you don't want to bite off your nose to spite your face, so to speak. So, and I go through the debt service part as well, that we have debt coming off because we are in a time constraint. You have debt coming off, and when it comes off, you want to be able to put something back in so that it also doesn't affect the tax rate. So I think all those issues are issues as to the rationale as to why this is a good project to put up right now. And why we actually followed through with it and approved it.
Well, you just reminded me, and I think we clearly put it in the HIDE too, this project that we're putting forward for Durkee still allows us to move forward if we choose to down the road. So that's why in the one chart, it actually has, I think I put like some or maybe or something next to one of them, because we're touching the roof that we wouldn't go back and do anything with if we put the second floor on, or we could then fix that part of the roof at a future project. So we're very calculated with our architectural team to make sure that nothing that we're doing at Durkee has an impact on the rest of the project at Durkee or what we do in the future, if that makes sense. And I do appreciate, Joan, too, with the capital reserve, that's actually, we'll be talking to the audit committee too, because that is how projects go through that are higher value, is having that reserve to support that local share that's not aidable. When I say that 86.4%, the other portion of that dollar is picked up by the local share. Now, some of that's already built into our budget, to Joan's point about the debt, but if we're going above that, then that's where the tax rate, or the tax rate per thousand, starts going up a little bit about what we have to increase the tax levy for.
The reset at Durkee, that's 5 years, but does that start when we approve it, when the construction starts? When's that?
Commissioner approval date. So you'll see on the schedule that I have set up right now, I have like it in the year, because really right now the maximum cost allowance at Durkee, when you look at this document, is upside down, because they haven't approved the additional. We had to ask them to recalculate that maximum cost allowance because it wasn't done previously, and they haven't done it yet. But I wanted when you see the document, it's exactly what you're gonna find on the state aid webpage if anybody goes and looks at it. As of the date I did it, you know, it could have been updated by now, but we're waiting for that to happen. So once the commissioner approval date is, but that doesn't mean we can't plan for a project, it doesn't mean we can't vote on a project. We just can't submit the paperwork until it resets.
All good questions and comments and good discussion for sure. Does anyone have anything else for roundtable tonight?
I don't have anything else. I just wanted to thank everyone for their comments about that. Denise, you raised excellent points as to why people were questioning the larger project as opposed to what's moving forward. I don't think it's from a lack of understanding. I think it's because of those points that were made by now both Joan and Denise. There are, you know, especially that 8 is a big issue. If we're getting 63 cents as opposed to 86 cents in a time period where inflation is really hurting people, where there are going to be tax increases in this county, in this area specifically, if anyone has eyes and has opened a newspaper or Syracuse.com or even state websites, which puts Lysander at one of the highest increases in the state of New York, it's important.
Are we all set to move on? Okay, item 11, resolve that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to the Taylor Law and the employment history of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion, please? Frank first, Denise second. All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. So everyone need 5 minutes? Okay. Thank you.